we can find ourselves in the same. That wasn't me.
That was
Okay. Very good. So Mass Development's done a great job in Devens. We need this level of effort here at Joint Base Cape Cod. I'm excited that the National Guard, Mass Development, and now working with the Cape Cod Commission, we can once again work together to craft the vision for the future of this installation that not only serves the needs of the military, but also serves the needs of some of the other services and the broader community. So without any further ado, Eric, come on up.
Back a second. All right. Thank you. Assume everybody can hear me. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak here. Appreciate the invitation and for Commissioner Forrest for coordinating this. Just a little bit about mass development. I feel like a lot of people maybe have heard about mass development, but everybody has maybe a different experience with the work that we do. So just try to bring everybody onto somewhat of the same page about mass development. So we are the Commonwealth Development Finance Agency charged with economic development throughout the Commonwealth. And we also serve as the land bank for the Commonwealth to take some surplus public property, whether it's state or federal, and redeveloping it to create jobs, housing, and a more livable Commonwealth. We work with businesses, nonprofits, banks, municipalities, providing loans, bonds, guarantees, and other financing sources, but also working on real estate technical assistance and direct investments to advance projects from pre-development all the way through construction. In the past fiscal year, we financed or managed 409 projects, and that generated more than $4.65 billion into the economy. And that's equivalent to creating or supporting 25,000 jobs and nearly 2,900 jobs. So that's something that we do over the course of a year. And we are the combination of a bank and a real estate development team. And that's because we were formed by the merger of the Government Land Bank, which is what started, I believe, in the 70s and really took over the redevelopment of Fort Devens, but also the Industrial Finance Agency, which provided the banking arm. So that's just a little bit about the history of where we are. In terms of investments in Barnstable County, the past 5 fiscal years, we made nearly $7 million of grants, and that's both a combination of state funds and our own funds through various programs, and provided nearly $200 million in financing for various projects. A significant portion of that is bonding for nonprofits such as Cape Cod Hospital. And some of you may also be familiar with our Transformative Development Initiative, which is focused on gateway cities. There was a district in Hyannis. It was a part-time district for a number of years, and then grew into a full-time district, complete with a fellow, who really focused all of our efforts into a district in Hyannis. And that facilitated more than $750,000 worth of investment directly into downtown Hyannis. In addition, as Adam mentioned, the military bond bill is something else that we're able to take advantage of, and that's invested nearly $2.5 million into Cape Cod over the past decade, and that's leveraged another $10 million of local, state, and federal funds as well. So the Barnstable County Council, we're very active and really excited to be here today and launching this process too. As Commissioner Forrest mentioned, Devens is one of our major projects. It's something that we became involved in as the local redevelopment authority in the mid-90s when Devens was BRAC. And it was certainly a big challenge. At the time, there was a fear of losing nearly 10,000 jobs and questions about what would happen to the entire region's economy. Over the past 30 years, we've worked with a variety of partners to transform this into a master planned mixed-use community. There's more than 250 housing units, 100 employers, more than 700 and actually 7,600 jobs at last count, but when I made the slide, it was 7,500. Commonwealth system, some of you may know it is hiring incredibly rapidly, and we're happy to have them, but it's $4.3 billion in total economic output, and that's direct output, not including the indirect or induced economic activity too, which gets you close to $8 billion. There's about 7.2 million square feet of commercial and industrial uses, and that's a mix of land buildings that were preserved and have been adaptively reused, and then new construction as well. That all goes along with nearly 1/3 of Devon's 1,400 acres being conserved as open space. I know that a lot of people know Devens as Fort Devens. I feel like a lot of people I talk to know Devens as where they watch their kid play soccer or football or have a track meet, because it's a regional destination for recreational sports. So soccer, like I said, football, flag football, lacrosse, ultimate frisbee. I mean, the list is endless. We're adding cross-country skiing now, ice skating. So the recreation department is really something that works really hard to serve the region. But it's also not just managed recreation space. It's also destinations like the Oxbow National Wildlife Refuge, which is a place where you can go birding, see rare species, paddle along the Nashville River. It's truly an incredible place to live, work, and play. And at the same time, as Commissioner Forrest alluded to, it is still an active installation as well, where more than 200,000 soldiers are trained annually at the Reserve Forces training area. So it's a great place. I gave a tour yesterday. Happy to have anybody who wants to do a tour. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. So. Pivoting to Joint Base Cape Cod itself, and there are certainly people here more qualified to speak about the base than me, but just to try to give a quick overview of the base itself. It's a full-scale joint use base: Army National Guard, Air National Guard, Space Force, and the Coast Guard. It sits in the 4 communities of Bourne, Falmouth, Mashpee, and Sandwich, but we recognize its regional impact and importance. We're not viewing this as just an opportunity to talk to those 4 communities, but the entire region. And that's why we're really, really happy to be working with the Cape Cod Commission to make sure that we have an effective community engagement and public outreach strategy and are able to execute that. Part of the why we're involved, besides being the land bank for the Commonwealth, is that we're legislatively authorized to receive the state-owned property that's been divested as approved by the Adjutant General. So I'll get into a little bit of the details about the land, but that's the kind of the main reason for our involvement here today. So of the 22 or so thousand acres total, there's about 15,000 in the northern training area. And that's not included in this master planning process. We're really focused on a cantonment area, which is somewhat of a catch-all term for the lower roughly 7,000 acres or so, the majority of which are owned by the state and then leased to federal partners such as the Air Force, and then licensed and permitted. There's a whole layer or layers of different land use users and permissions that are part of the complications of this base. There's an active airfield and the National Cemetery, but then there's also the administration, active training, mission and life support, and the conservation areas. This map shows some of the unique conservation aspects of Joint Base Cape Cod, which is, I think, really helps to demonstrate this being just one of those other layers of considerations as we do the master plan. I don't know if anyone has taken the tour of Camp Edwards that the base offers in the summer. I highly recommend it. I'm going to do it as often as Colonel Porter will let me on the bus. But it's truly an incredible opportunity to understand not only the mission and the activities, but also what a tremendous natural resource this place is. It's really something worthwhile. So who we're working with on this master planning initiative. We've already mentioned the Cape Cod Commission spearheading the community engagement and public outreach, but we're also working with VHB, Sasaki, RKG Associates, Inez, and Gleason Associates. This team was selected through a competitive process and demonstrated their expertise and experience on doing projects like this. We've worked with both VHB and Sasaki multiple times on military installations, including at Devens, and had really wonderful experiences, and I think they bring the skills and expertise necessary to not only provide a great plan for us, but also the necessary steps for implementation. And then we'll go to Adam and ask for all the money that we need to do it all. In terms of the goals and objectives that we've laid out for this master planning initiative, our primary goal is to help the base optimize its use of its land and its buildings and increase its organizational efficiency. That will help us support the current missions while also accommodating future needs. Through that process, there may be parcels that we identify as appropriate, as excess that may be appropriate for adaptive reuse. And this will help us to identify what those reuses might be. We're not saying any one thing it will be. I think that when I talk about Devens, I don't say that this is what's going to happen here, as much as I want to say this is what's possible when you have a coordinated master plan that takes into account all of the complexities of a military installation, its current uses, its future uses, its natural resources, but also when you have a community that's engaged. And that's something that we really want to do. Devens wouldn't be what it is today without the master plan that was developed over the course of 3 years by all the communities with public engagement and their say in what was going to happen to that community. What will come out of this planning initiative is both a land use and a building plan for the entire cantonment area. The coordination plan will enable that to all happen. But then the implementation plan, which is sort of the longer term, how we enact all of the things that we want to see, whether it's what roads need to be built, what fences need to be moved, and how we're permanently protecting natural resources, the appropriate buffers we need, and identifying the different public investments, funding resources, all those things that we'll be doing. We're looking at a 2+ year planning process, and we've broken it down into 4 phases. The discovery, which is where we're starting with learning as much as we can, not only about the base and its operations, but also what the community's desires, needs are, the region's needs and desires are as well. And then advancing toward the framework phase, which is where we start putting some of the guardrails in for what's possible and feasible. And then the scenario phase, where we identify different pathways to achieve our goals. And then the documentation phase, which is where we put it all together into that one plan. Throughout each of these phases, there will be different types and opportunities of public engagement, but we're looking at doing all of the public engagement forums that we can think of, whether it's in person, virtual. We'll have public meetings and open houses, but we're also looking at small group discussions and different sorts of stakeholder outreach. So I hope that you won't be tired of hearing from me by the end of it, but I want it to be something where you feel like you can always come talk to me, talk to us about what we're doing, and know that there are opportunities where if someone says, hey, I want to learn more about this, you can refer them to either an upcoming meeting or happy to share my contact info, which will be my last slide. We do also have a project website dedicated to this initiative. It's not, it's active, and there's more to come on that site. We're adding content currently. So right now you can go and subscribe for future updates, so you're aware of when we do schedule meetings, have major announcements, anything like that. And that will also allow you to be able to go back, review presentations. This one will also be on there, but I will share it as well. But that's something where we see, as both an information repository, but a place to provide feedback as well. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much for having me here today. Please do not hesitate to call or email. My cell phone is definitely preferred between the two, given how much I'm on the road. Always leave a message, but email is definitely best. And please always feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns. With that,
let's do questions.
Yeah, happy.
Questions? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for plugging the tour out there. I don't know how many have done it, but I know there you go, Doug, it's amazing, right? When I was a brand new counselor, the base reached out to us, and it is, you go into you see what Cape Cod can be. The stewardship out there is incredible, but you also see the military training.
Mhm. Yep. So right now, part of our work, besides announcing what we're doing, is developing the public involvement plan, which will talk about all of the different ways that we look to reach out to people. And that will include some of the listening sessions. So we're working on some of those logistics right now, but I expect that in the next 2 months, likely, probably early in the new year, we'll start to schedule those events in person and online.
I thought I-
All right, so I made a mistake in that I stopped sharing so we could see the people on the screen, and I know that you guys can see the map. I don't know if it's easy to share. It's okay.
Hopefully they remember.
All right. So I did forget to mention this. Cantonment area is south of this red line. And in terms of what cantonment actually means, I am going to call on Colonel. If I can.
Thank you. It does.
Okay, that's another great example of just partnership. It's different. This planning process is why,
Yeah, so, is there any thought of, well, the mic should be able to pick it up,
Well, I
right?
said that.
Alright.
Normally for you, yes, but give it a shot.
I have another one too.
My voice will carry too. I start out in the classroom teaching.
Yeah, don't use the mic that you're passing around because we can't hear it.
Thank you. Is that right? Is that what they said?
They own one in Alaska. They don't own this one.
That's exactly.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, while the end product will be a master plan for the cantonment area, it's not going to be an island. The goal is not that it's an island in the midst of these existing communities, but it's how can it complement or, you know, augment benefits that will serve the rest of the community. So it only makes sense in the context of what's around it as well. So I think that where there may be opportunities to, you know, include certain benefits or infrastructure that will be outside the cantonment area that can be identified through this process, that I think that would be the ideal. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I think, you know, we'll have the public engagement, the plan and the listening sessions, but I think the goal is also to be, you know, meeting directly with municipalities and their staff as possible. You know, I don't want to take over anyone's, job with all JBCC all the time, but I think recognizing the regional impact of this, we do expect to be meeting regularly. And like I said, happy to always talk by phone or email as things come up, just with simple questions, or more complicated ones that need us to work through big issues. Yeah, I don't want it to be like the only time you can talk to me is during the listening session or an open house. That is not, those are additional opportunities above and beyond, I would say.
I think I can speak for Falmouth that we would welcome those dedicated meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Eric, let's for a moment just reference the fact that we have a military civilian.
Yeah. So I don't want to speak for the MC Cubed. I expect that will be another venue where it will be discussed. I'm presenting next Wednesday at the MC Cubed. They have other business. But it's another place where I'm at every meeting, or at least a mass development representative is at every meeting, and happy to talk there. And then when there are updates, or we can, take the opportunity to use one of those meetings as a vehicle for community engagement like we did in the past, we'll definitely take advantage of that opportunity.
That is the intent, really, to kind of use that as a, it'll be on the agenda every MCQ.
Yeah.
You need to understand that council takes job making sure that their representatives is making so there's a town manager about all of them.
And I'm always happy to come back here as well if this, as you'll have me.
I have a request from the Zoomers. They can't hear that microphone and hear the Sky microphone. So if you belt, the Zoomers can hear you.
Belt.
Belt. Don't use that one.
Okay, thank you.
It'll probably still help.
An alum of Falmouth High School from the class of 1984, and someone who's seen the transition and the success of the rail to trail in Falmouth, and love to see that continue for the town of Bourne. Something I've always heard about through my life, and now as an adult, as we experience every day, and some of us did this morning. There's a concern for a spur to the base, but also for a safe evacuation for the Cape and the Islands. We need a place where we can park a sufficient amount of cars and get people off Cape safely. And I also just recently was laid off as a warehouse manager, and that was due to freight. The trucks that have to transfer freight to come from off Cape on Cape is a serious issue, and it was relocated to White River Junction. And on a map, in New England, it seems weird, but on a national map, the junction up there is much easier for traffic. But again, safe evacuation. Edward was the last time we had to evacuate in Cape Cod and the Islands. That was Labor Day weekend. I don't know if anybody remembers the crazy traffic backups we had that day. And that was just for tourists. That was not even including locals. And I'm sure we have more people take off, and any housing being added to the base is going to strain our local workforce. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this is really those sorts of issues really emphasize the benefit of having the task force involved and the governor's office, where it's not just mass development who's, coming and trying to, create a plan that works for the base, and maybe there's housing, maybe there's more jobs, but we're also working with the task force and its partners at MassDOT and making sure that we're planning for transportation impacts and what the evacuation routes are, and how we are working through all of those subsequent issues that could only become more pressing as the future continues.
Next question. Next question. Anybody else? Yes. And speak up.
Speak up to the green light.
Yeah, Eric,
Handheld microphone overrides the Sky microphones, so if you use the handheld, the Zoomers can't hear you. Because the room's set up for the trustees meeting, and it's a discussion board meeting, not a question and
okay,
answer.
thank you. We got it. From now on, anybody that needs to speak, line up here.
I appreciate it. Eric, do you mind going back to the map real quick? So just one suggestion, I guess, you're already hearing a lot of pent up energy for listening and a lot of good ideas. And you guys might already be jumping on this, but like the first step, I already see, 22,000 down to 7,000 acres, down to maybe much less than that. Do we have some, Cape Cod Commission probably very well astute at this, is mapping that shows internally what we really are working with? I'm sure the base has absolute needs that they must have, and maybe that trickles down even further. So we're talking about maybe it's 2,000 acres of land we're working with. I think that would be a great first thing to have, and maybe even have with the listening sessions if you already don't have that.
Yeah, no, thank you for the suggestion. It's definitely something that we're working toward between all the different GIS sources. That's between the base, Mass GIS, the Cape Cod Commission. That's something that we will put together. I think I want to say that maybe the opportunity, the areas for future development are, a lot smaller than the 7,000, but the cantonment area is what we're planning for. And, I don't see the airfields being anything other than the airfields, given its critical importance to the missions in the region. Is it smaller than 2,150 or so acres? Maybe, don't know. So I think that's where we need to take a look at the entire cantonment area and all the interdependencies, and even, we're not saying that while the 15,000 acres in the northern training area are not included in cantonment area master plan, the presence of that 15,000 acres and how they are used are still have an impact on that 7,000 below it, in terms of how you get, soldiers there, how you're doing monitoring and maintenance, and all of the other things that enable that to be both a training area and conservation area. So cantonment area, yes, there's a boundary. If you're familiar with our transformative development initiative, they use what they call fuzzy boundaries, because you can't say only economic activity in this area, it spills over. So I think in this case, we're focused on the cantonment area, but recognize that the area itself is actually larger than that.
And can I just add to that too? So
Speak to the green colonel. Come on over here.
Whenever we're like
in the ceiling,
I'm sure everybody in your talents, and when you're doing some major planning, you work the same way. Instead of looking at what you have for an available resource, it really comes down to what's your requirement. So if we put the requirements on the table, and everybody puts their requirements on the table, we can sort through what are the priorities and what have you. And we might have to prioritize, obviously, the military mission, it has to come first, and what we envision the mission to be in the future. But how we organize that, and you alluded to that when we're talking about our goals and objectives, can also influence how we get after some of the other requirements. So really, instead of looking at what you have for land, let's look at what the requirements are for the towns, and as well as the mission for the military, and looking out into the future too. And is it really a requirement? What's important? What's going to really serve the holistic community as a whole? I think that's important. I think we can just get after the requirements, and we can get creative, and that's why we have engineers and these firms working on this problem.
I want to point out that the northern 15,000 acres is also subject to Article 97 of the Constitution. All right, it was established as conservation area for the purposes of the Upper Cape Water Supply Reserve. That's where we get Cape Cod's drinking water. the groundwater beneath that green space. So for anybody who's drinking water from the Cape Cod Canal down to Bass River, your water comes from the ground. It comes from our sole source aquifer. The largest lens of drinking water is directly beneath that 15,000 acres. That's the reason why it's been set aside as Article 97 conservation land, referred to as the Upper Cape Water Supply Reserve. So it's important to understand that that's another factor in terms of the long-term management of the area. The southern 5,000, if you drive around the southern portion of the base to the folks that are not familiar with the installation and its operations, you may see a lot of vacant land or empty spaces, but don't necessarily assume that just because you don't see anything happening there, there aren't important things going on there. And the other thing I have to commend the National Guard for doing is they have an incredibly robust natural resources program out at the installation. They've done an outstanding job in mapping and identifying rare and endangered species habitat, particularly in the northern part of the reservation or the base. But on the southern end, they've done an equally diligent job in mapping those areas. You may see an area that there's nothing going on, but it may very well be an important habitat for some threatened or endangered species. And the reality is the National Guard knows that. They map that, they identify that, and they take seriously their obligations, under the various conservation laws for protecting those areas. So one of the things that we've been hearing is that during this master planning process, that kind of information is going to be fed into all of the information gathering so that we over time will get a much more comprehensive and complete picture of the range of activities and the diversity of things that are occurring on the southern portion of the base. And as was said before, just because you don't see anything happening there, there may be military training at some point or activities going on there. The good thing is that the Guard's got, at this point, an incredibly strong handle on all of those areas on the southern portion of the base. So we're running out of time. We've got one more question. Liz Argo. Liz, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Fire away.
Okay. I think one of the biggest issues that the Cape faces is traffic. And I apologize if I'm repeating what was said earlier by somebody. We couldn't hear anything. But I would hope that we could devise a way for ecotourists to get onto Cape Cod using one of the new bridges, leave their car behind, and enjoy Cape Cod via bus routes and bicycling, and have the base as a starting point. And the fact that it has the wind turbines and the mapping of the natural resources, and even the facility where we're on the cutting edge of toilets is very interesting to those of us who are eco-minded. So I hope that maybe this is a great opportunity for the base to provide that jumping off point for people who would like to get onto Cape Cod and leave their car behind. Thanks.
Thanks, Liz. That's great. So we'll make sure that you get all the emails on the listening sessions. Is there anybody else? One more final comment? Anything? Christy, do you want to add anything? You folks have obviously been very involved in helping review the scope.
Well, certainly I just want to commend Mass Development and the base leadership for tackling this big project. I know the commission's been engaged in master planning on the base for decades, and we're pleased to see this project proceeding. From where we sit, we're happy that you're really engaging with the broader community, and that's where we really feel like we can assist in that process. It's not only the leadership across the Cape, but also making sure that stakeholders and organizations are heard and can really provide that feedback and input as to what the needs are. We have a lot of challenges facing the region, and not only the bridges replacement project, but how does this project get incorporated into that resilience planning, housing planning. There's so many different things that we need to be addressing that we want to make sure that more comprehensive planning can be incorporated into this process. So just commend Mass Development and base leadership and the leadership, the elected leadership across the Cape for really engaging and embracing this project.
Thank you, Christy. Eric, any final words? Any closing comments?
Just a note of appreciation for the opportunity to be here. And then again, I'll leave my contact info up and share the presentation, but please don't hesitate to reach out. And thanks again.
That's great. Thank you very much.
With a
So I was thinking back to, we had a listening session.
I figured
How long ago was it?
So everybody,
that concludes our program for today. Thank you all for coming. Our board's going to convene in a few minutes, and you're free to go. Thank you.
It's like, we had a conversation about how we go.